Hey everybody, it's Patrice. I just wrapped up a lunchtime television hit talking about tomorrow's election. And by the way, thank God we have finally hit election day tomorrow. I don't know about you, but I am exhausted. It has felt like this presidential race started back in 2022 or even 2020, frankly. And so it has been a long, bumpy ride, and especially this year with the number of insane historical occurrences that have happened. I won't relitigate that. We'll talk about that another time. But here are two things that I'm going to be looking for following tomorrow's election, coming out of the exit polling, for example. Number one, the gender gap. So to speak, the gap between where men and women vote, for whom men and women vote. Now, historically, women have tended to vote for Democrats and men for Republicans. Not every woman and not every man, but generally that's how the vote has broken down. Well, right now, according to some current Newsweek polling, I think as of probably this weekend or maybe perhaps yesterday, Kamala Harris was polling about 52% of women and President Trump was polling 53% of men. That said, and each are polling a plurality of the other. So the question is, okay, what impact is that going to have? We know that the electorate actually is slightly more female, and early voting has hit astronomical levels. I use astronomical, I really just mean they've hit milestone levels. 77 million people voted early in this election cycle. And so it tends to skew towards women. Does that mean that Kamala Harris has garnered every one of those female votes? We don't know. But that said, it is going to be very important for both sides, and particularly for President Trump and his team, to be able to get out the male vote tomorrow on election day. So we'll see what happens with the gender gap, how that played a role in who wins on Tuesday, or whenever the election results are actually finally determined, Wednesday, Thursday, however many weeks. The second thing that I'm looking for is a slice of the female voting population, and I'm looking at Black women. I actually have up on Real Clear Politics today, posted over the weekend, this op-ed. And it's looking at how Black women have performed with how President Trump has performed among Black women since he first ran in 2016. So in 2016, he garnered 4% of the Black female vote, 4%. Very, very large percentage. The majority, I think it was 94%, went to Hillary Clinton, and then a third-party candidate garnered those last couple of points. Now, in 2020, he more than doubled his support among Black women to 9%. Okay, here's where we're at right now. New York Times Siena polling out a couple of days ago finds that President Trump is polling 14% of Black female votes right now. Now, the only poll that really matters is the actual vote, and that's going to happen tomorrow. So I'm going to be looking to see how the Black female demographic has decided to perform, whether they stuck with that 14%, or whether fewer of them voted. My prediction, though, is that absolutely President Trump is going to outperform how he did among Black women compared to 2020 and obviously compared to 2016. And the question is, will he break that double-digit threshold? Will he hit 14%, 16, 18%, 12%, whatever the case is? And I think it's indicative of the larger realignment we've seen in this entire presidential election cycle, where the Democratic Party and the Republican Party look very different than they did before. Whether you're looking at college-educated versus non-college-educated, blue-collar versus white-collar, when you look at just the racial demographics, we've seen this mass migration in the Hispanic community. We've seen a larger percentage of Black men start to vote for President Trump or vote for Republicans. So we've seen that movement. But the Black female vote, Black women are the most reliable demographic voting bloc for the Democratic Party. We know this. I am not at all suggesting that Black women are all going to vote for President Trump. If you say that I said that, you are lying. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is that it would be interesting if even 10% of Black females in this country decide to vote for President Trump, decide to vote for Republicans. That is telling. And what starts out as a very small sliver of the population of the electorate can grow. Now, where are we seeing the most movement among Black women? It's not the older women. It's those who are under 40, under 44, those 18 to 44-year-olds. Young people tend to be more open to other candidates and parties and to be much more issue-based rather than loyalty-based. And so it'll be interesting to see if these young women who are saying, you know what, I'm willing to give President Trump a chance. I'm willing to give Cornel West a chance. I'm willing to give a Jill Stein a chance. I was willing to give RFK Jr. a chance. If these Black women are willing to, continue to say, you know what, I'm not on board with the Democratic Party. And if we see, the 4% go to 9%, go to 12 or 14%, go to 20%, go even higher. Now, all of a sudden, you have a significant shift, and I'm not talking about in 1 or 2 election cycles, but over time, a real realignment of policies and politics here. So what does that mean for folks like me? Well, as a conservative, as a free marketer, as a person who has been in this space and believing these things for many years, to the surprise of many people apparently, but it's a responsibility for me and folks like me to educate all of the new supporters of the right, new conservatives, new people who are coming into this space looking for better policy solutions, whether they want a closed border, whether they are tired of inflation and high prices, whether they believe that tax cuts are actually a good thing and that the 2017 tax cuts did not just go to the wealthy. That's a lie. It actually, most people who get a paycheck received a tax cut. But they're looking for answers. They want more freedom, and not just freedom, bodily freedom as it's being defined in this race, but actually freedom to determine whether you work for yourself or whether the government is going to have a heavy-handed approach to whether you can be self-employed or whether you need to be an employee, whether you want to join a union or not, what you get to do with your body. Talk about 2020 and 2021 and 2022. People who lost their jobs because they didn't get a vaccine, they had a personal, religious motivation behind not receiving a vaccine, and their own government, their federal government, was forcing it on them as a condition of work. I think that there are a lot of people who would broadly define ideas and ideals of freedom more than just how they've been defined by one party or another. And so it's incumbent on us to educate, to talk about the history of the conservative movement, to talk about the values and the principles that really unite us. Why is it that we believe that personal choice and personal freedoms and personal responsibilities are critical elements of prosperity? How is it that we can ensure that the least in our society are taken care of? Why don't we think that it's only government? Why do we look to civil society to take a greater role in providing philanthropically for the needs of the wealthy, the needs of the poor and the needs of those who want greater opportunities? How do we define the conservative movement to people who are new to this? And so that's the next step. That is what we do after Tuesday. That's Wednesday and going on until. All right, I spent way too much time talking. I have a ton of hits lined up for this week. I'll try to post some videos on my YouTube page, some of my TV hits, but what are you looking forward to? What trends are you expecting to see? Drop a link, drop a comment in the chat, and I hope to hear from you. Don't forget, follow me at the Patrice Onwuka on YouTube, at Patrice Pinkfile on X.com, formerly known as Twitter. And I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, guys.